Texas is the man, the myth, the legend. Looking back, Texas. He is Steve Sipple from
Great place.
On3.com and 93.7 The Ticket. Good morning, Sip.
Yeah, thanks for the Looking Back Texas reference. It's a great, great song.
I know how to. I know how to.
You do, and you just did. God bless you.
All right.
How are you?
How
are you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Hey, we're doing wonderful, and glad to have you back on our soil. I'm sure it was a very productive time. You wrote a lot of engaging and thought-provoking articles. Great to have that access. You got to put some eyeballs on some prospects and, more importantly, coaches at work. But first and foremost, what did you wear?
Yeah, I left my, just so your listeners understand why you asked me that question. I left my luggage just in Lincoln. I just put my computer bag in my truck and headed off on Sunday to the airport. And I got to the airport and realized I didn't bring any clothes, but for what I had on, which, by the way, I left those clothes in. So on the return trip, I left those clothes in the Hobby International Airport in Houston still. But I brought my new clothes back. So yeah, I had a rough trip that way. I did went to Target and got 3 pairs of shorts and 3 T-shirts, socks and underwear.
Were there any pastel bowling shirts included into
No, there wasn't.
repertoire?
I bought 2 peach-colored T-shirts and a blue one, and they're nice though. I mean, they're nice T-shirts. There's a T-shirt sale.
Did you use a red card?
Yeah, $8.
What did you miss the most out of your luggage while you were in Texas? What was the number one item that you were missing?
Oh, I mean, it's heartbreaking. I almost wish you wouldn't have asked. The jeans
Sip, I'm sorry.
that I left behind were my favorite jeans.
Ah.
And you know how that. Yeah, there you go. There's the reaction I was looking for. Yeah, that's hard. That's a hard thing. Those jeans, you know how it is. If you have a favorite pair of jeans, those are 4 times a week.
Yeah.
So I got a big hole in my wardrobe right now. So that's that.
Did you also buy a suitcase? I mean, how did we bring back the clothes we bought?
No, that was embarrassing. There was some embarrassment attached to that conversation. So I just went with the Target bag.
Yeah, there you go. Roughing it.
So, yeah, Sean and Greg, my traveling partners and coworkers, they thought it was a little janky that I was carrying a Target bag into the airport yesterday. And I left the Target bag. I left it. That had some of my clothing in it. And I left that inadvertently. I got to the gate, and that old thing where I'm not going to go. I don't probably have time. And I don't want to go back to that area and get that. So that's it. I didn't want to go back to security and deal with that. So I just said, all right, that's it. Had a rough time going in terms of forgetting clothes and kind of a rough time coming back. I shoved most of the stuff in my computer bag and I was fine.
Wow. On that note, how about that German offensive lineman?
David Hofken.
Well done.
And that was an incredible story. Now I would say, I don't know, I'm not a coach, but I think the way things are right now in the world, in the college football world, and the way things are in Nebraska right now, I think this kid's a no-brainer. And I do. I'm not saying that he's going to be an All-American. He might be. I mean, but if you see him right away, and you can kind of, I guess, tell on the videos, if you've watched the videos, you can kind of tell on the video, but in person, it's more striking. And what am I getting at? He's 6'7" and 260, and he doesn't have body fat. Okay, so right off, 6'7", 260. I mean, he just doesn't have body fat. Washboard stomach, ripped. So right away, it's kind of alluring, right? You're like, wow. When you see him, it's kind of a wow. And then he moves. And I noticed it more him coming off the edge as a defensive lineman, but he does that well. So you can imagine, he probably moves his feet pretty well as an offensive tackle, which is where Nebraska will play him. And he's got size 19 feet, stuff like that. Oh yeah, this is it looks like a German lieutenant. I mean, it's a pretty interesting picture. He's 22 years old, and
any concern about him maybe even making it to campus, though? I mean, obviously, when you talk about the foreign aspect of it, he's bagging groceries at a local grocery store right now. Like, is there any concern with him maybe even being able to make it on campus at any point?
Oh, you mean because of like visa problems?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think. Yeah, I mean, there's always that. Just mild concern. It didn't seem like that's going to be a concern. He does have to go through some rigmarole in terms of visa and transcripts and all that. And I think you're probably looking at a July arrival. And for the uninitiated, we're talking about a 2024 player. I mean, this is not a class of 2025. This is a very late add to the class of 2024.
So a couple of days, the portions of the Nebraska staff are at Mary Hardin Baylor and then Houston Christian. You, Sean, and Greg are down there for On 3. Was Nebraska aware of this guy before they saw him earlier this week?
Nope.
Wow.
They weren't. That's a good question. And again, value of camps. That's you go out to these camps, and no, you don't always know who's going to show up. That's part of the value. And this in this case, it was interesting. I mean, so right away you walk into the stadium in Belton, Texas. It's Mary Hardin Baylor. Big. I mean, it's fat. You probably know Gary. They're Division III national champs, and it's a gorgeous Division III stadium. Really interesting, actually. And anyway, so one of the workers says, "Hey, those guys in bright green shorts, they're from Gridiron Imports.
Mm-hmm.
So they're foreign. They're from foreign countries, and they're part of this nonprofit group. There's a nonprofit group that takes them around the camp. And so, I don't know. I'm going to say there was 20 to 30 of them. And yeah, there were some guys that were that what they offered, as best I could tell, was bigs. I mean, they had some bigs.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were a college coach, I'd make sure I know about Gridiron Imports for reasons like Huffkin. And they had another kid, I can't say his name, another big that was pretty good that Nebraska was looking at. So they had some pretty good big players. And yeah, that it's something that any college coach would want to know about, this Gridiron Imports that takes these kids around to camps.
What do you make of this coaching staff's ferocity at these camps? They're hitting them pretty hard, pretty quickly, trying to get some guys in the boat pretty fast. Have you been kind of surprised with that, or was that the thought process going in to these events to try to get as many guys as they can as early as they can?
Well, I mean, they're gonna. I mean, I don't know. The best way to answer that is they're really determined to establish a consistency in Texas, and I think you're going to see and you know what? I think they're pretty determined just to keep it with Belton and Houston. And it makes sense to me. Belton is, that is close to Waco. It's a drive from Dallas, about 90 minutes, I think. Sean does the driving. I'm vaguely aware where we're at most of the time. But, it's in that area. Then you drive. Then you go down to Houston, and there's just so much talent there. I mean, no, you don't always know who's going to show up. They didn't know Braylon Prude last year. Braylon Prude was the guy that got out of the Houston camp and signed him, and he's in their class of 2024. And he was again. No, they had no idea who he was. But there he was, 6'4.5". They clocked him at 4.4 plus. So now you have this 6'4", 189-pounder, 190-pounder with long arms, running 4.4. And that's exactly what the kind of guys they're looking for in the secondary. So it's, I mean, this is what you do, right? That's what you do as a coach. You go kind of scour these types of camps. You can't go everywhere, but Houston makes a lot of sense because there's 700 players there. And in Houston, if you're at this camp, you're pretty good. I mean, it was striking to me watching like the skill camp. They have a littler guy camp and a big man camp. And it's just, I mean, there's just a lot of good players in Houston. That's the way it is. And there's some pretty good bigs too. So yeah, the whole picture makes sense to me.
With all the discussion about maybe the walk-on program being cut due to NCAA regulations and limiting roster size, does it surprise you with the numbers that they have in Lincoln right now and all those discussions that are kind of on the back burner right now that this coaching staff doesn't seem to be slowing down and adding guys anytime soon?
Well, that rule's not in place, and they're operating in the here and now.
Okay.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, I don't think you gear for something that you don't even know is going to happen. They don't know what the roster size will ultimately be. So no, they're not paring anything right now. They're not paring down anything right now. They're operating in the here and now, and that's the way to do it. And yeah, I would say, getting back to your question, it's pretty impressive to watch Nebraska's guys operate.
Well,
it really is.
Well, one of those guys, because he was in his element, what stands out about Garrett McGuire? You've seen him enough in Lincoln. The Garrett McGuire that is back in Texas is what?
Well, he's very well known and he's very well respected. And he's very comfortable in that environment. It's clear. Mm-hmm. I think he's probably comfortable in most environments. He does really, he's a confident young coach. But he's you know what? He's interesting because he's serious. He's a very serious young guy. And at those camps, he's business. And he's good. He's good. He just comports himself really well. And I guess we say that because he's so young and all that. But he does. He's a 24-year-old and he's all business. And he's got some presence. You know what? The guys know him. The other coaches. The high school coaches on hand, the coaches at Houston Christian, their coach is Jason Bachtel. Houston Christian's head coach is a 44-year-old guy named Jason Bachtel. By the way, Houston Christian's playing Nebraska in 2025. And yeah, there's just a respect for Joey McGuire, and there's a respect for Garrett, not just because he's Joey's son. Mm-hmm. And my perception is Garrett is much more confident. I mean, you can tell he's a little more seasoned now.
Yeah.
And maybe some of his confidence stems from his room got whipped into shape. He's got a good room. He doesn't, he doesn't go around trumpeting it. He doesn't. That's not what he does. But I think you have that sense. He's pretty confident. He's got a good room. He's got a better room they had last year.
Don't you think that was intended by rule? Because I thought there were times last year where, I mean, maybe there was a disconnect between some of the older guys and a young Division I position coach, where he maybe related better to the younger guys. That you look at that room, and you're absolutely right. I agree with you, Sip. The Banks and the Nao are good players, but they're also mature. They're not like, they're going to create a circus atmosphere. They're all business. And that's probably with older guys exactly what that room needed for still a coach that is learning as he goes. But I agree with you. He was more assured of himself this spring than he was, at the times we got to talk to him last year.
Yeah, and I get part of the value of a trip like this is I get a much better sense of that because I'm not on the field in the spring with Nebraska. We just have that very limited availability, and I hate to talk about it too much because then the other media will go down to Texas. But it's really incredible how much time. It's incredible how much time you get with these guys. It's not like quick interview before the camp, quick interview after the camp. No, you're on the field with them. I mean, I'm not. I mean, you're walking around the camp with Donovan, Raiola, with Satterfield. You're on the, I did an interview with Garrett during the camp, while guys were running 40. Well, they were warming up. So there's kind of some times that are better than others to interview. But like Terrence Knight and during the middle of a camp just said, "Hey, let's just do it right now."
Mm-hmm.
You know, and not because they're not paying attention to the camp, because there might be a little break in the camp, or it was during the skill guide camp, and Terrence, you know, he was waiting for the show to start later in the day when the big men were there. So, yeah, I can tell you, we could do a 2-hour show with all the stuff I learned. I mean, it's invaluable. And you know, I probably wrote 1/10 of what I've got right now. So it kind of keeps you going through June. There's a lot of interesting stuff that you learn that I had no idea. There's just stuff I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that Jamari Butler, he's the guy who runs the defensive line room. You know, you would have thought Ty Robinson or Nash. No, it's Jamari Butler. It was Jamari Butler and Thomas Fedoni after the Michigan game that said, "Guys, this isn't going to work. This can't happen." It was Jamari Butler and Fedoni. I had no idea. I had no idea that was the case until Terrence Knighton was telling me that. No idea that James Williams is going to be. I mean, watch James Williams this year. He's not. That's not a guy who's going to play 9 snaps a game. Okay, yeah. He's one of their better defensive linemen now. I had no idea.
Of the coaching staff guys you got to catch up with, who did you walk away the most impressed by with the information you got?
Oh, I hate to do that. I don't like to single anybody out. They're all really good. I mean, just based on what I just told you, Terrence Knighton, I kind of gravitate to him. He's really personable, really funny, really. I mean, but he's not a clown. I mean, he's a dude.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say Knighton. I really, you know, I like them. I like dealing with all of them. They're all in their own way. They're really great. Different personalities. It's interesting. There's much different personalities, but no, you really, really come away from this with a great understanding of that staff.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
I'm with you on Terrence Knighton, and I think of the coaches that joined Matt Rule, I think Terrence Knighton is probably the one that has progressed. Because I think he has a good sense. I mean, the guy played in the NFL. He's got the mindset of a coach, but in terms of getting his position group right and everybody doing the same thing, and then also learning the recruiting thing, man, I think Terrence Knighton's got a bright future. I don't know if it is further in college or back to the NFL, but that man can coach.
Well, look at that defensive side of the ball. I get what you're saying. Yeah, Knighton with this position group into shape. So did DeBoer. So did Cooper. I mean, look at that side. I mean, they're less capable of the defense than the defensive side. But yes, Knighton did a good job. Again, DeBoer, I think what he did, you know, just with the inside linebacker position, and then kind of what he's done in the offseason, getting Bullock back, Vincent Savers coming in and making a mark. And it looks like that position's fine. Yeah, I'm really talking about that. I really say that all the time. You have a right player, and so he's done a good job. Cooper's obviously done a good job. You know, secondary, I think, plays strong end of the defense. So that side of the ball, they all.
And they have coached each other up, and their DC has let them coach.
Yeah, and in the DC, we don't even think. I didn't talk to Tony that much because I interviewed Tony at that camp in Omaha.
Do you think it's because of the past knuckle?
No, I didn't. Yeah, but they, no, I didn't talk to Tony as much. A lot of Knighton, a lot of Satterfield, a lot of Cooper, a lot of Sonic Garrett, a lot of Barkel. So yeah, it's really good. You know, they got a guy, they got the job.
Hey, great stuff, Sip. I appreciate it. Sorry to hear about the travel snafu close.
Yeah, a little harder.
Do you want us to reach out to Hobby Airport there in Houston and see if we can retrieve your target bag?
No, it's kind of embarrassing. There's some dirty socks, the big loss was a deep smell. It actually bought a smell for about 3 years. So I got to go back to the smell.
The YouTube comments are very concerned about your underwear situation.
Why? That's not something that needs to be aired out.
Yeah. That's glad they didn't need to be.
I don't know what you're referring to.
Welcome back. Great job. I enjoyed the coverage and the conversation. Thanks for contributing.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
That's Stephen and Sipple. We must read some of the comments. Jake responds, how do you forget your clothes for a trip both ways? And forget the new clothes you had to buy because you forgot to bring it back. This is one of the more incredible Sipple